exploring what I call partials. And, you know, the purpose of this lesson is to give you some places to go as a second guitarist. For instance, if you're jamming with somebody, like I was just playing, that's a loop of me just going like this with an A and a D, nice easy strum, kind of a, I guess you'd call it Americana or whatever, folk blues. You kind of got that Eagles thing or whatever, right? So I just did a little loop of that. I wanted to show you what I did. And then what I'm going to do is I've been explaining it in the key of E and the key of G, and I'm trying to have you see the similarities of how you formulate doing what I call partials. And in the case of, up till now, I've been using the G and the high E string. Today I'm going to extend a little bit out, and I'm going to use the D and the B string, and you'll see in a minute why. These are just simply different voicings of the same chords, okay? And it'll all come to you when it does. So my first point, I think, is that if you get that A bar chord, which we all know by now, hopefully, because you know you got E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, it goes up and down like that. It's like a power chord, right? So if you're playing that A bar chord on the 5th fret here, if you take this part of it, which is the 6th fret on the G and the 5th fret on the high E, you've now got what I call a partial. Now I'm just playing the G and the high E string, okay? Primarily, that'll be the first part of this lesson. Okay, so I'm voicing that partial in the A chord, just those notes. I'm doing exactly the same thing, but up to the D position, which is the 11th fret of the G and the 10th fret of the high E. So same shape, move it right up. Okay? And if you move that up too, you got your E or your 5 chord. Okay? Nothing changed, just moved up 3 frets. And then back to the D and to the A. So it's 1, 4, 5, 4, 1. That's one way to look at it, okay, if you go by the numbers. Otherwise, you could just call it an A, a D, and an E, because you see what I'm playing there, right? So now I want to show you, we kind of like, we did that in G. And I'm going to show you that little climb move again, so you remember it. In this case, I'm going from here, then I'm going up to the 7 on both the G and the high E before I hit this 9 on both the G and the E. And that's a nice little move. We've all heard that one a lot, you know. So it's a really handy little thing to have in your toolbox. Now what I'm gonna utilize that very move in the course of this lesson. But I also want to take you, instead of just going from here up to here, which I just showed you, that's a D and an E, and back to a D. I'm gonna show you another way to do that voicing, because it gets a little samey if you do the same one every time. So you want to have some choices to go to. So the second one I'm going to show you, you still start out with this one, which is that partial of, you know, taking apart that A chord. But instead of going here, I'm going to have you utilize the D and the B string on the 7th fret, okay, like this. So it's another voicing of a D chord. And if you really want to take that apart, you know, that's a power chord. You're just picking out the D string and the B string. But it's funny, when you pick out just 2 notes, whether you call it a double stop or a partial, it tends to open things up a bit. Because if everybody's just strummy strum, it gets muddy. We don't want that. We want some differentiation between the embellishment guitar and the guy who's just, you know, the person, guy or gal is just playing the steady rhythm. Should not be discounted in this world of music we talk about, because man, good rhythm players they're worth their weight in gold, I'm telling you. Someone that's really, as Mark Knopfler would say, Lenny strictly rhythm. He doesn't want to make it sing or moan. But without the rhythm player, you don't have much of anything, okay? You just got somebody dweedly-do, and that's boring. So, once again, going from the A form, that partial, to the 7th fret of both the D and the B string. Now just move that up 3, okay, to the 9th fret, both the D and the B are on the 9th fret, 2nd finger, 3rd finger. Now you've hit your 5 chord, okay? So it looks like this. Originally we did this, which is great, good to know. And we climbed it. And you can, if you want, you can repeat that on the D. I wouldn't here though, because we're getting pretty high. And then just walk it down. Okay, so now I'm just going to do all the things I just taught you, and I'm going to do them, you know, in the rhythm in the loop, and hopefully you'll grok what I'm doing, and I'll eventually play out some cool like added stuff, some special sauce. Here it goes. Ready? So we're just A to D, and then up to E. Okay, now I'm gonna do the alternate one. Ready? Here's the other D. Up 3, back to the A. Again, to the D, to the E. Okay, now I'm going to do some walk-ups. Watch this. One more time. And I'm going to walk it down. How about a bass line? Now I'm getting a little fancy, that's okay. So you can experiment, right? Now let's do the whole kitchen sink. Open strings. So what I was doing there is I was using my open E string and then hammering on the F sharp note, which is the 2nd fret of the E string. Open A, 2nd fret of the E, A, and then, so in slow motion it'd be, and you're into your A pattern. So that's a nice way to intro it, you know. I'm getting off, you know, a little out there in the weeds here, but I wanted to throw that in as a little special sauce for you. So what we really covered there was this 1, 4, 5. Then we did same chords, different inversion. Okay, and then we did a little walk up, and we repeated that if we want to. Walk it up or down. All these patterns work. That's what I'm trying to get you to kind of really grok in your mind. If you get where you've memorized these patterns, and as I mentioned before, you know, in a minor key, it's a whole other conversation. But I'll get to that. In fact, I do a lot of that at jimmydillon.com. So if you like this kind of stuff, acoustic, I love acoustic guitar. I wanted to mention, though, a little trade thing. I like playing my acoustic through my Magnetone. It's a vintage amp, and I turn it down really low. I learned this from watching Ry Cooder and John Leventhal and people like that. I noticed that when they're playing live, a lot of times they'll add just a little shadow of a cool little Fender amp or something, along with you know, probably the PA stuff and their, you know, pristine stuff. And it seems to add a little bit of grease to it, if try that, you know, you can hear what it sounds like without it it's fine. Check it out when I bring it in. It's a little fatter. It's kind of nice. In this case, I have a tiny little bit of tremolo. Yeah. The key to all that stuff, I think, is don't overdo it. You know, just a little touch will do you. Okay, you guys, that's a long lesson. I hope you like it. If you saw something you like, rewind it and go over it again. Otherwise, hit me up at jimmydillon.com. I'd love to hear your comments. That's the reason I do this, is just to shed a little light on the guitar playing and hopefully add some fun to it. All right, I'll see you down the road.